Welcome, seekers of lore, to Mythic Mundi. We exist in a world of defined spaces. We have shorelines, and beyond them, the ocean. We have horizons, and beyond them, the unknown. For the ancient Norse, this concept was not just a geographic reality, it was a monstrous, living, and divine truth. They believed that our world, Midgard, was entirely encircled by a boundless ocean, and within that ocean lived a creature so vast it could not be contained. A serpent so colossal it held its own tail in its mouth, defining the very limits of existence. He is the ocean's fury, the child of a trickster, and the fated enemy of the god of thunder. Today, we explore the scales and coils of a true titan. This is the story of Jörmungandr, the Midgard Serpent. To understand the serpent, we must first understand his origin. Like so many figures of destiny, Jörmungandr's story begins not with his own actions, but with a prophecy. A shadow cast long before his birth. His father was Loki, not the charming, mischievous rogue of modern fame, but the Norse god of cunning, chaos, and unpredictable change. Loki was the blood brother of Odin, the Allfather, yet he constantly walked the line between loyalty and disruption. His nature was to challenge, to trick, and to instigate. His mother was the giantess Angrboða, a name that translates to the one who brings sorrow. She lived in the shadowlands of Jotunheimr, the realm of the giants, who were the ancient rivals of the Aesir gods of Asgard. The union between Loki and Angrboða was one of shadow and chaos, and it produced 3 children, each one a stark deviation from the divine order of the gods. They were not children in any normal sense. They were personifications of forces that the gods of Asgard deeply feared. First was Fenrir, the great wolf, a creature of insatiable hunger and strength, growing larger and more fearsome by the day. Second was Hel, a being half living and half dead, her very presence a reminder of decay and the inevitable end. And third was Jörmungandr, the serpent. The gods of Asgard, led by the wise and paranoid Odin, heard of these children. Prophecies and whispers reached them, foretelling that this trio would one day play a central role in the great unmaking, the final, fated battle, Ragnarok. Odin knew that such concentrated chaos could not be allowed to grow unchecked within the 9 realms. The gods, in their self-preservation, decided they must act. They traveled to Jotunheimr to seize the children. This was not a rescue, it was a preemptive strike against destiny. Each child was met with a different fate, a different form of containment. Hel, the solemn girl with a face of 2 realities, was given a form of authority. Odin cast her down into the deepest, darkest realm, Niflheim. He proclaimed that she would rule over all who died not in glorious battle, but from sickness or old age. She became the reluctant queen of the dead, her realm named Hel after her. Fenrir, the wolf, was a greater problem. His strength was already legendary. The gods recognized the danger and brought him to Asgard, hoping to tame him. But he grew too fast, his power too wild. Only the god Tyr was brave enough to feed him. Realizing he could not be controlled, the gods resorted to a trick, binding him with a magical, unbreakable ribbon forged by the dwarves. The wolf remains bound, for now, waiting. And then there was Jörmungandr. He was just a serpent then, perhaps, large, but not yet the World Serpent. Odin, looking at this offspring of Loki, saw the boundless, chaotic potential of the deep. He took the young serpent and, in a display of divine power, hurled him from Asgard, down through the branches of Yggdrasil, the World Tree. He was cast into the great primordial ocean that surrounded the world of men, Midgard. This was intended as a banishment, a prison. But the ocean is not a cage, it is a medium for growth. And Jörmungandr grew. He grew beyond any mortal comprehension. Days, years, centuries, time in the deep ocean lost its meaning. The serpent expanded, his scales becoming vast plates, his body thickening to the size of mountains. He grew so large that his body formed a perfect, unbroken circle around the entire world. He became the Ouroboros, the ancient symbol of a snake devouring its own tail. But here, it was different. He wasn't just a symbol of infinity. He was the infinite boundary of the world. He was the wall between the known and the unknown. To sail too far from land was to risk encountering the serpent. He was the world's end. The Norse called him Midgard Serpent, the Midgard Serpent, the World Serpent. He lay in the deep, a sleeping, breathing, and patient force of nature. Think for a moment what this represents. The gods of order, the Aesir, live in Asgard, a realm of structure, law, and purpose. We, mortals, live in Midgard, a place balanced between order and chaos. But surrounding us, always, is the Utgard, the outer yard, a place of wildness, giants, and uncontrollable forces. Jörmungandr was the literal embodiment of this boundary. He was the living, looming chaos that the gods had tried to throw away, but had instead made into the frame for our entire reality. He was not evil in the way we might think. A tsunami is not evil. A hurricane is not malevolent. Jörmungandr was a force of nature. He was the personification of the ocean's immense, terrifying, and untamable power. And as he grew, so too did the prophecy. He was not just a boundary, he was a key player in the end of all things. And in Asgard, one god in particular, the protector of Midgard, the champion of order, felt the serpent's presence more than any other. This god was Thor, the god of thunder, and their rivalry was already written in fate.
The relationship between Thor and Jörmungandr is one of the most compelling in all of mythology. It is a rivalry of perfect opposites, order versus chaos, land versus sea, the protector of humanity versus the boundary of the world. Their fates were so tightly interwoven that the cosmos itself seemed to conspire to bring them together. Their first significant, though indirect, encounter is a story of illusion and humility. It took place not in battle, but in a test of wits and strength at the castle of a giant king named Utgardr Loki, or Loki of the Utgard. Thor, traveling with his companions, the mischievous Loki and the swift human Thialfi, found themselves in the great hall of this giant. Utgardr Loki, a master of sorcery and deception, scoffed at the small gods and challenged them to a series of contests to prove their worth. Loki, ever boastful, failed an eating contest. Thialfi failed a foot race. Then it was Thor's turn. Thor, the strongest of all the Aesir, the god who wielded the mighty hammer Mjolnir, was brimming with confidence. he was first challenged to a drinking contest. He was given a massive horn, told that a true champion could empty it in one draught. Thor drank and drank and drank, but the level of the liquid barely seemed to fall. After 3 monumental efforts, he gave up, humiliated. Next, Utgardr Loki, feigning disappointment, pointed to a large gray cat sleeping by the fire. "Surely," the giant king said, "even if you are not a great drinker, you can perform a simple child's game. Lift my cat from the floor." Thor, insulted but determined, approached the cat. He put his massive arms underneath it and heaved with all his divine strength. The hall rumbled, but the cat, impossibly, merely arched its back. Thor strained, the muscles in his arms and back tensing to their absolute limit. He poured every ounce of his power into the lift, and to his shame, he could only manage to raise one of the cat's paws from the ground. Defeated and furious, Thor was forced to concede. It was only the next morning, as they were leaving the castle, that Utgardr Loki revealed the truth of his illusions. The drinking horn? Its other end was connected to the ocean itself. Thor had drunk so much that he had lowered the sea level, creating the world's first tides. The eating contest, the foot race, all were deceptions. And the cat? The cat, the giant king explained, was not what it seemed. It was Jörmungandr, the Midgard Serpent, disguised by my magic. And when we saw you lift its paw from the floor, we were all terrified. For you had not just lifted a cat, you had stretched the very fabric of the cosmos. You had lifted the World Serpent himself. This story is profound. It establishes the sheer, incomprehensible scale of Jörmungandr. He is so large that even the strongest god cannot move him. But it also establishes Thor's power, that he was the only being in the 9 realms who could have moved him at all. The rivalry was set. Thor had touched his enemy, even if he didn't know it, and he would not forget. This brings us to their second and most famous direct encounter, the fishing trip. This time, Thor was not tricked. He was hunting. Fueled by his humiliation at the giant's castle and his innate duty as the protector of Midgard, Thor decided to seek out the serpent and end the threat himself. He disguised himself as a young man and went to the hall of the giant Hymir. He offered to help Hymir fish, but the giant mocked his small size, doubting he could be of any use. Thor, containing his thunderous rage, simply asked Hymir to provide a boat, claiming he would find his own bait. Thor then went to Hymir's pasture, found the giant's largest prize-winning ox, and with his bare hands removed its head to use as bait. This was not a subtle act. Hymir, now deeply unsettled by this boy, reluctantly rowed them out to his usual fishing grounds. Thor, however, insisted they go further. Further, he commanded. Hymir protested, warning that they were approaching the dangerous deep waters, the serpent's domain. Thor insisted. They rowed out into the dark, churning expanse where no mortal dared to go. Thor prepared his line. It was not a simple fishing line, but a chain of immense strength, and on its end, he fastened the massive ox head. He dropped the bait into the abyss, and he waited. The Eddas, the ancient Norse texts, describe what happened next. Below, in the cold dark, Jörmungandr, the World Serpent, tasted the bait. He bit down. The pull was so violent it nearly sent Thor overboard. The ocean itself seemed to protest. The boat groaned. Thor, His feet planted firmly, he pulled back. This was not a fishing trip. It was a cosmic tug of war, the protector of order pulling against the embodiment of chaos. Thor's divine strength surged. He pulled so hard that his feet broke through the bottom of the boat, planting themselves on the ocean floor itself. The waves crashed, the sky darkened. Thor, his knuckles white, his muscles pushed to their absolute limit, drew upon his divine heritage. The serpent, a force of nature, resisted with equal might, its thrashing shaking the foundations of the world. Slowly, inch by inch, Thor, the champion of the gods, began to win. He drew the serpent up from the depths, and then the head of the Midgard Serpent emerged from the waves. It is a moment frozen in mythic time. The god and the serpent, eyes locked. The god of thunder, his face a mask of determination, and the colossal dragon, venom dripping from its fangs. Thor, triumphant, raised his hammer Mjolnir, preparing for the strike that would end the prophecy. But he was not alone in the boat. Hymir, the giant, looked upon the face of the World Serpent and was overcome with a terror so profound that it shattered his sanity. He saw the world ending. He saw the ocean rising. In a panic, just as Thor was about to strike, Hymir lunged forward with a knife and cut the line. The serpent, freed, sank back into the depths with a sound like the world splitting in two. The backlash was immense. Thor's roar of fury was said to be louder than any thunder he had ever summoned. His chance was lost. The confrontation was not resolved. It was merely postponed. The Eddas are unclear on what happened to Hymir next. Some say Thor, in his rage, struck him, while others say he was simply left to his terror. But the main outcome was clear. Jörmungandr was wounded, but alive. Thor was victorious, but unfulfilled. Fate had been challenged, but it had not been broken. The prophecy remained. The serpent was still in the ocean, and Thor was still the protector of Midgard. They both knew, in the deep cosmic sense, that this was not the end. They would meet again, one last time.
The Norse worldview was not one of endless optimism. They did not believe in a happily ever after. They believed in a fated, inevitable end, a final battle where the gods themselves would fall. They called this event Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. And at the very heart of this prophecy, at the center of this cosmic unmaking, was the bitter, unresolved feud between Thor and Jörmungandr. Ragnarok does not begin with a single act, but with a breakdown of all order. It is preceded by the Fimbulvinter, 3 long years of snow and ice, where all bonds of kinship and society dissolve. The world descends into a desperate, chaotic state. Then the signs begin. The great wolf Fenrir, Loki's other child, finally shatters his magical chains. Loki himself, long imprisoned by the gods for his treachery, breaks free. The fire giants from Muspelheim, led by Surtur, prepare to set the world aflame. And in the ocean, Jörmungandr, the World Serpent, feels the shift. The Ouroboros, the symbol of the contained cyclical world, lets go of its tail. It is an act of pure, cataclysmic release. The serpent, no longer a boundary, becomes an active force of destruction. He thrashes in the deep, and the world is drowned in a venomous tide. The oceans rise, not as gentle waves, but as a single, overwhelming flood, poisoning the air, the water, and the land. He floods all of Midgard,
forcing humanity to face the end. The serpent rears his colossal head from the poisoned sea and makes his way to the final battlefield, the plain of Vigridr. The gods of Asgard, led by Odin, ride out to meet their doom. The battle is a series of fated duels. Odin, the All-Father, fights the wolf Fenrir and is consumed. Freyr, the god of fertility, faces the fire giant Surtur and falls. Heimdall and Loki, the trickster, end one another. Every god has their destined opponent. And then, amidst the fire, the flood, and the clashing of armies, Thor, the god of thunder, finally finds his nemesis. He sees the World Serpent, Jörmungandr, spewing venom and water, his massive form coiling over the battlefield. This is the moment their entire existence has built towards. It is not a battle of good versus evil. It is a conflict of elemental fury, order versus chaos, the storm god versus the sea dragon, the protector of the land versus the fury of the deep. Thor, the champion of both gods and humanity, wastes no time. He leaps into the fray, his hammer, Mjolnir, a blur of thunder and light. The sky cracks open as he brings the full force of his power against the serpent. The confrontation is beyond our understanding of a fight. It is a collision of natural forces, a storm and an earthquake combined. Thor, driven by eons of rivalry and his duty to protect a world that is already ending, strikes the serpent. He strikes with all the power of the thunder, all the strength in his divine limbs. And this time, there is no Hymir to cut the line. This time, Thor succeeds. With a final, monumental, and world-shattering effort, he overcomes the great serpent. Jörmungandr, the World Serpent, is defeated. But victory is not the same as survival. In its final agonizing moments, the serpent expels a cloud of its deadly, potent venom. The venom blankets Thor, covering him in the toxic essence of the deep. Thor, the protector of Midgard, stands victorious for only a moment. He has slain the World Serpent. He has defeated chaos, but the cost was everything. He stumbles back from the serpent's form. He takes one step, 2, 3. He manages 9 steps, a significant mystical number in Norse lore, perhaps one for each of the 9 realms he defended. And then he, too, falls. The protector of Midgard is no more. The poison has done its work. The god of thunder is dead. This is the great tragedy and the profound message of Jörmungandr. He is not just a monster to be slain by a hero. He and Thor are 2 halves of a whole. They are forces so perfectly balanced, so defined by their opposition to one another, that they cannot exist in the same world. Their final confrontation results in their mutual destruction. Order and chaos, in their ultimate battle, annihilate each other. But the Norse story does not end in this total despair. After Ragnarok, after the fire and the flood, the serpent's poison and the thunder's last peal, the world is reborn. A new land, green and fertile, rises from the sea. A few gods survive. 2 humans, Lif and Lifthrasir, who hid within the world tree, emerge to repopulate the earth. The cycle begins again. The Ouroboros, the serpent, had to let go of his tail for the old world to end, so that a new one could begin. Jörmungandr was not just a boundary or a monster. He was a necessary component of the cosmic cycle of death and rebirth. His legacy is not of simple villainy. It is a legacy of inevitability. He is the looming, awesome power of the natural world, the deep, dark, and uncontrollable ocean of chaos that surrounds our small, orderly lives. He reminds us that all boundaries are temporary, and that all things, even the gods, must one day face their end. This tale of Jörmungandr has echoed through the ages, inspiring countless depictions of sea dragons and world-ending monsters. But few have the philosophical depth of the original Midgard Serpent, a creature who was at once a prison, a prisoner, and the key to the world's final, necessary transformation. What mythic figure or ancient legend should we explore next? Let us know your ideas in the comments below. Your curiosity guides our journey. And if you wish to continue exploring the great myths of our world, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Mythic Mundi, and click the bell to join us on our next expedition into the past.